If you're my mum or my girlfriend, please click off this video because I do not want you hearing how much I've spent on this car. So I guess it's time to do the video where I do a build breakdown and see how much I've actually spent on this Porsche 944. First and foremost, I'm in a very fortunate position where I can build such a cool car like this and able to spend my money on such a cool car. So I don't want to hear it's a bad investment and I shouldn't have rebuilt this really cool car, because at the end of the day, it's what I want to do and I'm lucky enough that I'm able to do it. So if you're one of those people that are going to say, oh, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, or you shouldn't have built a 944, you can also click off this video because I honestly don't want to hear it. I'm pretty proud of this thing and proud of the fact there's not many in this condition in Australia, let alone the world. So I think it's time to get started. Now, the car actually cost me a fair bit. 944s have skyrocketed in Australia, so I spent $19,000 on the car. Everything is in AUD, by the way, so if you're from America or whatnot, please, you're gonna have to do the math yourself. So a funny story about this car, Dad and I actually drove it from Melbourne to Brisbane in the peak of Australian summer, which reaches around 40 degrees. And it was hot, to say the least. We had the windows down, top was off on the roof, and what was funny is this car's got no power steering or AC, so it was beltering hot in the thing, but it didn't skip a beat. There was no issues. The window did fall down, but we had it down anyway, so it was a pretty cool experience. This thing, it's done a few Ks, so it's pretty cool to see it had no issues driving up there. So with all the parts and the fab work and stuff, obviously I'm not going to add labor because I did everything myself, and most of the things are an estimate. So I'm not going to go through every single invoice because there's so many invoices and some stuff that I've obviously thrown out. So it's all an estimate. So we'll start with the engine bay and the tubs and all that sort of thing in the car. I spent around $500 just on basic materials. So your sheet metal, your Scotch-Brite discs, sanding discs and all that sort of thing. And consumables for, before paint. So with paint, obviously this thing's been repainted, so it got sent off to KR Colour and Kyle painted it, and to say that he did a good job is an understatement. He did so good, and very, very happy with it. I think I spent around $14,500 on it, and it's a pretty good job with bodywork, of course, and some spare parts. I got a spare front bumper. A lot of people are spending upwards of like $70,000 to $80,000 on paint work on their show car, but I think mine competes with it. Okay, so for parts, again, this is all an estimate, all in Australian dollars. I think I spent around $5,000 in OEM parts. All the little things, small things that I actually couldn't make, I did. And a lot of the parts were out of America and Europe, so I had to pay a lot for shipping, hence the cost. So I spent around $4,000, I think, for aftermarket parts, things like the alternator. I didn't reuse the factory alternator because that was like $1,000 from Porsche, so I retrofitted a different alternator in. Things such as battery brackets and all the little things that I ended up just using new stuff of. So the seats, now I've got confetti LX Recaros in, they came from Japan, my dream seats, and I've actually got them in my car, so really happy. I spent $2.5 Australian dollars getting them here and obviously delivered. Couldn't be happier with them. They fit perfectly, and if anyone is wondering, they actually bolt into the factory rails, which is really cool. In terms of other interior components, I ended up like repainting all the carpet with dye, with like a specific spray can dye that you can paint carpets with, but that's added into the totals later on. And another thing that I had to redo was the headliner. The headliner costs around $700, I think, to get done. So it was expensive, but if anyone knows how hard they are to get done, especially in like an OEM Porsche fabric, and how hard it is to do it around the sunroof, you'd understand. So obviously at this point, the car's already back. So the plumbing costs around $1,000 to get done. I ended up making all new brake lines, new fuel lines, and obviously braided brake lines as well, from the caliper to the hard line. Now, fabrication cost, I ended up probably spending around $1,500 on fab bits. So for the exhaust, all the bends for the exhaust, all the tanks that I made inside the engine bay, that sort of thing. Now, cost for the fab work is a lot because things are expensive now, especially materials in Australia. Not sure why, someone probably knows, but yeah, ended up having to buy sheet metal, and like I mentioned, all the tube work and all the bends and stuff for the exhaust, they were so expensive. So yeah, the fab work definitely costs a lot, but luckily I did everything myself, because if you include labor on that at like $100 to $200 an hour, this build cost would be absolutely crazy. So going to, I guess you can say, the looks or the aesthetic modifications, obviously it's on bags. It looks cool. I like it. Very, very happy with it. The bag kit came out of Hong Kong, $4,500 delivered, which is really cheap. If anyone knows anything about air suspension, it's expensive, and we managed to get it pretty cheap on sale. The kit's actually really good, and the cost of it was pretty cheap, so I was a bit skeptical, but you know, when it arrived, everything was billet, everything was packaged perfectly, so we definitely got a good kit for the car. And then the wheels as well. Now, they're expensive wheels. They're more than the car, like genuinely more than the car. I picked up these wheels for $5,000 out of Sydney, and yeah, I drove to Sydney overnight to go pick them up. Pretty funny, in the van that I had at the time, and slept on the side of the highway. But you know, these wheels are worth, you know, upwards of $15,000 to $20,000, right? And I got them for $5,000. They weren't in great condition. However, I did rebuild them. So I got new outer lips and new inner barrels and new BBS stickers, and they are actual BBS stickers, so they cost a fair bit. Total on the rebuild for the wheels was $2,500, and that was out of the UK. So altogether I spent $7,500 on my wheels, and then plus tires, which is another, I think, $500, about $8,000. Genuine BBS 5x130s. So yeah, very hard to find. So obviously it's adding up a lot now, and at this point I have spent a lot of money, especially in a 4.4, but that's all right. I have gotten it fully detailed properly, so it did get wet sanded, cut, polished, and ceramic coated, so that was $4,500. Now, yes, that's a lot of money for a detail, but it was a month's worth of work. The thing is like pristine. That's including dint removal as well, because there was a few dints that I think I may have caused when I was putting this thing together. Lastly, we're going to add like a bit of a miscellaneous $1,000 at the end, and that's, you know, your spray cans, your paints, your zip ties, all the little things that, you know, don't actually add to a specific component to the car. It's more of a whole. But yeah, it's quite important I add that, because consumables are important to factor into your build, you know, especially spray paint, sandblasting, powder coating, that sort of thing. I did sandblast everything here, but you know, the beads as well for the sandblaster, that definitely has to account for the total cost. Okay, so all in all, I spent $66,200 on this car. Now, it is a lot for a 944, but I can't imagine how much this car would have cost if you were to factor in the labor. You know, charging around $200 an hour on fabrication work alone, plus, you know, minimum 300 hours on, you know, the engine bay and then the exhaust, you know, the number's absolutely outrageous. So all in all, it's not actually that bad holistically, but at the end of the day, it's not about the cash figure, it's about passion. So I really hope my mum and my girlfriend didn't hear how much I spent, because yeah, it's a lot of money. But at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's about, you know, passion, showing my workmanship to the public, really, especially during car meets and stuff. This thing's pretty popular, so being able to showcase a cool car, it means the world to me, especially all the support that I'm getting online. I really, really appreciate it. It means the world. You've got no idea how happy it makes me. So yeah, being able to keep making content and you guys watching and liking it, it's pretty cool. So if you made it this far, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.